All right, get ready because today we're going deep, deep into the world of Siberian Huskies. We've got this awesome article here, perfect for any dog lover. It seems to cover just about everything you'd ever want to know about these incredible pups. So by the end, not only will you know if a husky is right for you, but you'll also be loaded with some fun husky facts to impress your friends with.
You know, I think what always gets me about huskies is just how connected their history is to human survival. Like, in some of the toughest environments on the planet, you know?
Yeah, I mean, picture it Siberia in the early 1900s. What was life like for the Chukchi people who bred these amazing dogs?
I mean, imagine a vast frozen landscape, temperatures that would make most of us just shiver to think about. The Chukchi people depended on huskies for way more than just pulling sleds. These dogs, they were true partners in survival. They transported food, supplies, sometimes even entire families, imagine that, across these unbelievable distances, facing blizzards and sub-zero temperatures.
And it wasn't just a purely functional relationship, right? It wasn't like, a farmer with a workhorse or something.
Oh, absolutely not. Huskies were basically family members. They lived right inside the Chukchi homes, and that bond, forged over generations. That's really what shaped the Husky's incredibly loyal and friendly temperament.
And speaking of loyalty and incredible feats, anyone who knows even a little bit about Huskies has heard of the 1925 Serum Run to Nome, Alaska. It's practically legendary. But there's even more to it than just the bravery, isn't there?
Yeah, the Serum Run really put Huskies on the map, you could say, showcased their endurance to the whole world. But I think what often gets overlooked is the Chukchi people's role in it all. Like, they bred these dogs to be capable of something like that. They meticulously selected for strength, stamina, and this unique ability to thrive on relatively little food in really extreme conditions.
It's kind of mind-blowing when you think about it. Those decisions made by breeders centuries ago led to the very dogs who made that life-saving journey possible. And of course, there's Balto, the lead dog who became such a symbol of heroism.
Oh yeah, Balto's story captured the world's imagination for sure. Really cemented the Husky's reputation for not just endurance, but, like unwavering loyalty and a certain nobility.
Okay, we got to talk about looks. We can't talk about Huskies without acknowledging how striking they are. Those piercing eyes, the wolf-like features. No wonder people are so drawn to them.
Yeah, it's all a direct result of their breeding and environment. That athletic build is just perfect for those long distances. And that thick double coat, well, that's nature's answer to surviving Siberian winters.
And those eyes. It's not just the piercing gaze, it's the variety too. Blue, brown, green, even bi-eyed, with each eye a different color. It's mesmerizing.
Oh, totally. It's a real testament to the genetic diversity within the breed. But as stunning as they are, we can't forget that all those adaptations are about function too. Those wide paws with the furry cushions, those provide traction and insulation on snow and ice.
And that awesome sickle-shaped tail, that's not just for show either.
Oh, right.
They use it to curl up and keep their nose warm, like a built-in blanket.
Exactly. Every feature has a purpose, honed over generations to create a dog capable of thriving in the toughest conditions.
Okay, so we've covered history, looks. Are you ready to dive into the personality of a Siberian Husky? Because that's where things get really interesting, I think.
I'd say their personality is every bit as compelling as their looks. They're so friendly and outgoing, which is a big part of why they often make such great family companions.
But there's always a but when it comes to dogs, right?
Yeah.
Especially a breed as unique as a Husky.
You're definitely right about that. Huskies have a really strong independent streak. You could even call them free spirits. This independence, combined with their intelligence, means they're not always the easiest to train, that's for sure.
It's like they have this adventurous spirit that's just bursting to get out. And if it doesn't, well, they might just find their own ways to let it out, which might not be exactly what their owner had in mind.
Exactly. They were bred to think for themselves, to problem solve, to explore. And that translates to a really big need for physical activity.
Like way beyond your average walk around the block.
Oh yeah, for sure.
I've heard some stories about Huskies getting into all sorts of mischief if they don't get enough exercise.
Let me tell you, a bored Husky, that can be a very destructive force. Chewing, digging, even escape attempts, these are all signs, of a Husky who needs more outlets for all that energy.
Yeah, I can imagine. That explorer instinct must be so deeply ingrained in them.
It really is. It's in their DNA. And that's why training becomes so important. We'll get more into that later. But it's key to remember that while Huskies are social and love being part of a family, they also still have that pack mentality from their ancestors.
So how does that pack mentality play out in a typical home setting?
Well, basically, they need a strong leader, Someone who sets clear boundaries and expectations. Without that, they might try to take charge themselves, and, well, that can lead to all kinds of behavioral issues.
Makes sense. So it's not about being dominant or harsh with them, but about providing that structure they need to feel secure and thrive.
Exactly. And while we're talking about families, it's worth mentioning Huskies and kids too. They usually adore kids and have a very tolerant nature. But considering their size and strength, supervision is always a good idea.
Of course. Makes sense. So we've covered history, looks, that independent spirit. Where do we go from here?
Well, all that energy and adventurous spirit requires a pretty robust physique. And luckily, Huskies are generally a healthy breed. But like all dogs, there are some things to keep in mind.
Okay, let's talk about that next then. We'll dig into healthcare, all the things potential Husky owners need to know to keep these amazing dogs thriving. We were talking about Husky health, and you said that, even with all that energy, they're generally a pretty healthy breed. But are there any specific issues that, potential owners should be aware of?
Oh, for sure. I mean, they do have a lifespan of 12 to 15 years, which is pretty good, especially for a medium-sized dog. But they are prone to a few genetic conditions. Hip dysplasia is one, especially if they're overweight. And eye problems, things like cataracts and glaucoma, can also pop up.
So regular vet checkups, those are a must for any Husky owner. Catching those things early is key. What about their diet? Do they have any, special nutritional needs, given their history of, thriving in such tough environments?
It is fascinating, isn't it, how efficient their metabolism is? It's a total adaptation to where they come from. Lets them travel so far on relatively little food. But that doesn't mean you can skimp on quality, though. A balanced diet is super important for keeping up their energy levels and their overall health, of course.
Makes sense. And we can't forget, a tired Husky is a happy Husky, right? So those opportunities to burn off energy, those are non-negotiable. But we touched on this earlier, training a Husky. That can be, unique. What's the biggest misconception people have going into it, do you think?
A lot of people mistake their independent nature for a lack of intelligence. But Huskies are crazy smart. It's just that they were bred to think for themselves, to solve problems. So your traditional obedience training, it doesn't always go as smoothly.
Right. So how do you approach training a dog who is basically bred to make their own decisions out on the frozen tundra?
I think it's about finding that balance, between structure and appealing to their instincts. Consistency is a big one. They need those clear expectations. And they do really well with routines, but it's also got to be engaging for them. Huskies are super motivated by food and play, so use that to your advantage.
So lots of positive reinforcement, treats, praise, maybe even a little game as a reward.
Exactly. Make it fun, keep the session short and focused, and always end on a positive note. That way they associate training with something good. And speaking of enjoyable, early socialization is just as crucial for Huskies as for any other breed.
Yeah, puppy classes, dog parks, walks in busy areas. It's all about exposing them to different people, animals, and environments, right?
Right. It helps them grow into those well-adjusted, confident dogs who can handle different situations without getting scared or aggressive. And it teaches them how to interact with others properly.
This all ties back to that pack mentality we talked about earlier, doesn't it? Establishing yourself as the leader.
Absolutely. They need that strong, confident leader to guide them. But it's not about being a harsh or dominant, remember? It's about clear, consistent commands, setting boundaries, and providing that structure they need to thrive.
It's like being a benevolent leader. I like that. You're giving them direction and security, which lets them relax and be their goofy, playful selves. But let's be honest, all that leadership and training, it might get tested when it comes to grooming. That double coat is gorgeous, but I imagine it requires some serious upkeep.
Oh, you're not wrong about that. Good news is Huskies are naturally clean dogs. They don't have that typical doggy odor. The challenge is the shedding, especially during shedding season. It can be, prolific is one word for it.
So how do you tackle that? Daily brushing.
During shedding season, daily brushing is ideal. It gets rid of loose hair and prevents mats. Outside of those periods, weekly brushing should be enough. But bathing, that's not something you need to do often.
Really? With all that fur, I would have thought.
If you bathe them too often, it actually strips their coat of natural oils, which can make it dry and irritated. Every few months is usually enough. Or if they get, particularly dirty.
Good to know. So we've got the training down, grooming tips. But Huskies were bred for cold climates. What about those of us who live in warmer places? Is it even ethical to keep a Husky in a hot climate?
That's a really important question, and it's something anyone considering a Husky in a warm climate needs to think about seriously. They can adapt, but it takes extra care and attention.
What are some absolute must-dos for keeping a husky comfortable in the heat?
Access to shade and fresh water at all times, those are non-negotiable. They need a cool, shaded place to escape to when they're outside. And always, always have fresh water available.
Okay, what about exercise? Should their activity levels change during hot weather?
Absolutely. Avoid anything strenuous during the hottest parts of the day. Early mornings or evenings are best. And always be on the lookout for signs of overheating. Things like excessive panting, drooling, lethargy.
So it's about being proactive and using common sense. If it's too hot for you to be outside for long, it's probably too hot for your husky too.
Now let's talk about some common misconceptions. I've heard people say huskies aren't good family dogs because of their independent nature, you know?
Yeah, that's a myth that needs to be debunked. Huskies can be amazing family dogs. It's all about finding the right fit. They're great with kids, especially if they're raised with them. But supervision is still key, just like with any breed.
It's about managing that energy, that playful nature. What about other pets? Do huskies generally get along with other animals?
They can. Early socialization and proper introductions are super important, though. Because of their pack mentality, you can sometimes run into dominance issues, especially with dogs of the same sex.
So, slow introductions, careful observation, and maybe even working with a trainer if you need to. And what about the idea that huskies are aggressive because they look like wolves? Another myth that needs busting. I mean, sure, they might resemble wolves, but huskies aren't aggressive by nature. They were bred to work alongside humans, and their temperament shows that.
So that piercing gaze and those wolf-like features might scare some people, but it's all bark, or rather howl, and no bite.
Exactly. Their howls and their playful antics, those are way more common than any aggression. They're much more likely to shower you with affection.
I think we've done a good job of clearing up some common husky myths. Any final words of wisdom for our listeners before we wrap up this part of the deep dive?
I think it all comes down to this. Huskies are amazing dogs, but they're not for everyone. They need an active, patient, and dedicated owner. Someone who really understands their unique needs.
Someone who embraces that adventurous spirit, right?
Right.
And is prepared for the challenges that come with such a high-energy, independent breed.
Exactly. It's definitely a commitment. But the rewards are just immeasurable. Their loyalty, intelligence, and just pure zest for life. It's really captivating.
Well said. I think that's a great place to pause for now. We've covered so much. From training and grooming to debunking those myths and talking about the challenges of having a husky in different environments.
We've definitely given potential husky owners a lot to think about.
In the final part, we'll wrap things up with some closing thoughts on husky ownership, resources for potential adopters, and a look at what the future holds for this incredible breed. So stick around. Welcome back to the final part of our husky deep dive. We've really gone in depth, haven't we? Explored their history, those unique looks, that independent spirit, talked about all the joys and challenges of sharing your life with one of these amazing dogs. So as we wrap things up, I'm curious, what stands out to you as like the most essential thing, the thing a potential husky owner really needs to know?
You know, after everything we've talked about, I think it really comes down to this. Owning a husky, it's not just about the basics, right? It's not just food, shelter, a walk every now and then. It's about really getting them, understanding those primal instincts.
Yeah.
That deep-seated need for adventure, that desire to run, like it's woven into their DNA.
Almost like you're not just getting a dog.
Yeah.
You're getting a little piece of the Arctic's wild heart.
Exactly. And that means you got to be ready for some things. The shedding, the potential for escape artistry. Seriously, those fences better be high and secure. And the need for consistent training and socialization. But if you can meet those needs, you know, if you can channel all that energy and intelligence in the right way, the rewards are just, there's nothing like it.
You get this incredible bond, a loyal companion who's always up for an adventure. But for anyone listening who's seriously thinking about bringing a husky into their life, what are some practical steps they can take to make sure it's really the right fit?
The first thing I think is honesty. Be honest with yourself about your lifestyle. Huskies, they do best in active homes, with people who love being outside. Hiking, running, maybe even some dog sports like sledding or agility. A fenced-in yard is a must, absolutely. And a commitment to daily exercise, that's non-negotiable.
These aren't dogs for a leisurely stroll around the block, that's for sure. They need to run, to explore, to really use those incredible physical and mental abilities they were bred for.
Couldn't have said it better myself. And if you're up for the challenge, well, there are so many wonderful huskies out there, just waiting for their forever homes, in shelters and rescues all across the country.
Adopting a rescue, that's such a rewarding experience, and huskies often end up in shelters. because people they underestimate their needs. You could be giving a deserving dog a second chance at a happy life.
Absolutely. Of course, responsible breeders are also an option if you're looking for, say, a specific lineage or temperament. But no matter where you get your husky from, the key is to be prepared, to do your research, and to go into it with realistic expectations.
Now, looking ahead, what do you see for the future of Siberian Huskies? I mean, they've definitely become more popular over the years. But with that comes a responsibility, doesn't it? To make sure they're treated well and understood.
I think their popularity is only going to continue to grow as more people discover their amazing personalities and the joy they bring. But it's on us, as husky enthusiasts, to advocate for responsible ownership. We need to educate people about their unique needs and make sure those needs are being met.
It's about dispelling those myths, promoting ethical breeding practices, and just making sure that these dogs, with their incredible history, their connection to the wild, that they're treated with the respect and care they deserve.
I couldn't agree more. We've covered a lot in this deep dive, haven't we? From their wolf-like origins to the everyday care. But I really hope what sticks with listeners is a sense of wonder at just how incredible these dogs are. Their resilience, intelligence, their spirit.
They really are captivating creatures. And if you're lucky enough to share your life with a husky, cherish every moment. The adventures you'll have, the bond you'll forge, it's truly something special.
Well said. And on that note, I think it's time to wrap up our Siberian Husky deep dive.
We've explored their world, delved into their history, and hopefully left you with a deeper appreciation for these remarkable dogs. If you have any questions, any experiences, any thoughts about Huskies, we'd love to hear from you. Share them in the comments below, and be sure to subscribe to The Deep Dive for more fascinating journeys into the world around us.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep howling with curiosity.